Now, one of the first things I want to say is that they tell us that people won't watch long YouTube videos because our attention spans these days are so limited, and so narrow. We're so used to very fast information. However, there are some times you really need to sit back and watch a longer video or read a bigger article so that you can get the information you need, especially when it relates to your health. I'm assuming that the reason that you're watching this video right now is because that you personally or someone you know has gotten a report from a urologist or a medical doctor that your PSA numbers are higher than you want them to be. And the first thing that happens when those of us that are in my age bracket, or really any age bracket, and I'm in my 60s, the first thing that happens when we get a report of higher than normal PSA numbers is a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of concern. And of course, we listen to the doctor, and they'll prescribe some medications, or they may want to do some other procedures to try to figure out what's going on. And hearing of those procedures, some of them are non-invasive, like a CAT scan or an MRI, but others of them involve getting a biopsy, and that's kind of concerning because from what I've heard, that's not very comfortable. As a matter of fact, my dad had that biopsy done on him, and he said it ruined him in every area that is of concern to a man. So I've always tried to avoid that if possible. And when I was diagnosed with my 13 PSA, the first thing that I did was I went to YouTube and I started watching videos on what causes PSA numbers to go up, what what are some things that you can do naturally, just watching a lot of videos. And some of those videos were 3 minutes and some of them were an hour and 3 minutes, but I didn't care. That was a dangerously high number, and I wanted to get as much information as I could. And so by watching all of those videos and reading lots of articles and checking out all kinds of products that are out there, I was indeed able to learn some things that helped me lower my number from 13 down to 6. And I'm trusting that it's going to go even lower than that. So this is where I need to put the disclaimer in. So here's the disclaimer. I'll give you a second to read that. So I am not a medical doctor, and nor am I a certified nutritionist. So I'm going to strongly encourage you to listen to what I have to say and take it for what it's worth. But understand this is my personal experience that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to encourage you that if you get, or if you've gotten a higher, a diagnosis of higher PSA numbers, then by all means go see your urologist and listen to what he or she tells you and follow their advice. I mean, that's the best and safest thing to do. But I'm also going to encourage you to learn as much as you can about the prostate gland and what causes numbers to go up, and what are some things that can impact it. And that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know why my number had gone from 4 in 6 months all the way up to 13. I mean, in a 6-month window, it had gone up that high. And as I was reading and studying and learning more about the prostate gland and the PSA numbers, I learned that, the first thing that you think when you see a high number like 13, the first thing you think, of course, is prostate cancer. I've got prostate cancer, oh my gosh. But I learned very quickly that there are a number of things that can cause PSA numbers to go up, even dramatically in that short of a window of time. It could be things related to poor eating habits. It could have something to do with stress and anxiety, emotional challenges, financial concerns. It can have something to do with another health issue. that may be going on in your system. It also, I didn't know this, but after we are sexually active with our wives or whoever, right after that happens, the PSA number goes up. And I don't recall how soon after I had been with my wife that I got my blood work that got me the number 13. But even still, 13 I think was pretty high, even if there was some physical relations with my wife within a 24-hour period of time. I think that was a little high. So the first thing that I did was I just started studying and learning as much as I could. And of course, my urologist had already prescribed me before the standard medications of finasteride and Flomax, or tamsulosin as it's called in the generic. And I had been taking those, have been taking them for quite some time. But I have a tendency to take myself off of them when everything is normal. You see, because when I had a number of 13, I didn't have any symptoms whatsoever. I didn't have the frequency, the frequency of urgency to have to go to the bathroom. I didn't have a weak stream. I didn't have any pain. There was nothing that indicated that there was anything wrong. So I was very surprised when I got the 13 number. I didn't have any symptoms. And so I when I don't have a lot of symptoms, I tend to not be as regular in taking these medications. And the reason that I take myself, especially off of the Flomax, is because of the sexual side effects that it has. I mean, you may or may not be aware of that, but there are some sexual side effects that all men really would prefer not to have to deal with. And so when everything seems to be going normally, I just tend to take myself off of it. So when I got the high number of 13, of course, I immediately put myself back on these medications and started doing some other things as well, which is what I want to talk to you about. Is what I want to share with you. As you do this research, as you watch videos like mine and others, you're going to hear lots of things about some medical things that can be done, and some nutritional things that can be done, some exercise things that can be done. And I watched all of those things with great interest. I really did. I wanted to know what I could do. I'm very proactive when I get a diagnosis that's negative. I'm not reactive. I'm proactive. I immediately start looking at some things that I can do. I had remembered that a lot of friends had told me you need to take saw palmetto and some of these other nutrients or herbs and things like that. And I started researching those, and I found this one. This one's probably got the highest rating of all of them out there, prostagenics. And from everything that I studied, this is the one that had the highest ratings. But mainly it has it has just the highest amount of nutritional herbs and things related that help to lower PSA numbers, or at least it's assumed that they'll lower PSA numbers. And so I ordered this, and it's not inexpensive, but I ordered it and started taking it, but only 2 months after I started doing some other things, which I want to talk to you about. But one of the first things I did was I went to 2 urologists. My first urologist is the one that I typically go to. Now, he's older. As a matter of fact, I'm making this video in March of 2024. And he told me the other day that he's going to be retiring in August. So that should give you an idea that he's probably been practicing urology for the last 30, 35 years. And so I talked to him about my numbers recently. after I had dropped them all the way down to 6. And his reaction is typical for the old school urologist. And again, I'm not saying that they're wrong because they're old school, but his reaction was typical. And that was, if you've got a number of 6, that could be a red flag warning that you have cancer and you need to start having that checked out. And he wanted me to have a biopsy. He wanted me to get a certain type of MRI and a few other things that he talked about. And, so his response was kind of alarming because he wants me to go and start having the biopsy, which I told you my dad had that. And he told me, he said, son, if there's any way that you can avoid that, then do so. He said, number one, it's painful. And number two, it can ruin you in your relationship with your wife. And he said, if there's any other options, take them. And so that was always in the back of my mind and is always at the forefront of my thinking when I talk to my urologist, because I know I've known him for a while, and he always wants to talk about doing that biopsy. And so his response was alarming to me. But I went to another younger urologist, and I'm not saying that because he's younger, he's smarter. I'm just saying that he has a different perspective on it. His response was more assuring, whereas the first doctor, the older doctor, his was alarming, whereas the second doctor, who's probably been practicing, I think I looked at his diploma on the wall there, I think he's been practicing for about half the amount of time that the older urologist has been practicing. And I told him about my numbers. I said, I've gone from 13 down to 6. But I wanted, to give you an opportunity to give me your thoughts on it. And his response was, I'm not concerned about the number being 6. And that kind of surprised me. He said, I'm not concerned about the number being 6. He said, I'm more concerned about trends. Are the numbers trending up or are the numbers trending down? He said, because that's a better indicator. And then he went on to tell me that, he asked me about, do you have any symptoms like pain and, frequency of urination and low stream and all of that. And I told him, no, I don't have any of those things. And he said, I have patients who have a number 2 PSA reading, and I have patients that have a 30 and above. And he goes, and some of my patients with PSA numbers who are in their 60s like you, who have PSA numbers of 2 or 3, do have prostate cancer. And that's the normal range of PSA numbers. He said, and then some of the guys that have 30 and above PSA numbers don't have prostate cancer. He said, so I'm more interested in what the trends are doing. He said, is the number trending down? He said, in your case, it is. He said, so I'm not as concerned that you might have a prostate cancer. And of course, they did the exam that they do, where they feel your prostate gland, and they can tell by that whether or not it's enlarged, whether or not there's any nodules or things like that on there. And both doctors had done that, and both of them said it's a little enlarged, but there are no nodules that I can feel. So I was more assured by the second doctor, because he said, what we're going to do is just for the next 3 months, just keep our eyes on the numbers. So I told him what I had done in the 3 months, that I had gotten the number of 13 down to 6. In 3 months, I told him what I had done. And he didn't say, well, what you have done is the reason numbers have gone down. I want to make that very clear. He said, we don't know. He said, because we don't know what caused it to spike up that high in the first place. He said, but taking proactive action is the right thing to do. He said, it's certainly not going to help you. He said, we just can't say that it's definitely what caused it to go down. And that made sense to me. But let me tell you what I did. After I got the 13.3 number, I immediately started looking at, and I told my primary doctor, I said, I'm going to, before I go get biopsies and all that, I'm going to try a more, because I am proactive, I'm going to try some more natural approaches. Because from what I understand, prostate cancer typically is slow growing. So 3 months, I wanted to give myself 3 months, probably wasn't going to cause it to grow that fast if it was cancer. And I was willing to take that risk because of the things that my dad told me. So what I did was started doing some nutritional things, changing my diet, and some things that I'm going to share with you. And again, this is my experience only. This may or may not have the same results for you. I can't promise that. I'm going to tell you what I did and I based what I did on advice or insights that I had received from other men on YouTube and in articles that I had read that had worked for them. So let me tell you some of the things that I did. First of all, I eliminated all sugar from my diet. Sugar is horrible for the entire body anyway, especially the older that we get, but it's also horrible for the prostate gland. It just is. And, you know, I drink coffee every morning and I put cream and sugar in my coffee, and I have for 50 years almost. I've been drinking coffee since I was a teenager, and I've always put cream and sugar in it. But I found that allulose, you know, all those sugar substitutes are terrible to me. They all taste awful. None of them taste like sugar to me. And so at first I was using honey instead of sugar because the body does process honey differently than sugar, but it's still not very healthy for you. So I found, you know, some allulose. This particular one is in my local grocery store. And allulose is the only sugar substitute that I have found that actually tastes like sugar. At least to me it does. It doesn't have that aftertaste. It doesn't have that terrible artificial sweetener taste to it. And the idea of artificial sweeteners just sounds like they'll give you cancer, you know? So I didn't want that. I wanted a more natural product, and I found this allulose, and it tastes exactly like sugar to me. And the problem with it is that it's more expensive. Like this container right here costs like $9, and it takes more of it. And so you're going to run through this faster. But to me, that was a price worth paying. So that's the first thing I did. Was I eliminated all sugar from my diet. And of course, within 2 weeks, I noticed that I was losing weight, which is not a bad thing. Secondly, I cut my caffeine intake in half. Instead of, they always tell you, wipe out the caffeine. Well, the only reason they want you to wipe out caffeine is because it makes you go to the restroom more often. You know, it's a diuretic, and it makes you go to the restroom more frequently. And so if you drink caffeine, you're going to pee more. So what I did, because I don't want to just drink, you know, decaffeinated coffee, it doesn't have the same effect. I just mixed half caffeine and half caffeinated coffee with half decaffeinated coffee, and it tasted the same and it had the same effect. And that's what I do most mornings. I'll just have half and half. And so I did that. Another thing I did was I eliminated dairy products, all dairy products. Dairy products are horrendous for the prostate gland, so they say. And so things like milk and eggs and cheese and any dairy product, you just want to get it out of your diet. Now, I love eggs. I'm a big Southern breakfast kind of guy, you know, bacon, eggs, sausage, biscuit and gravy, all of that. I love all of that. And I've been eating that for decades, you know, and that was hard. But I found out that the problem with eggs is not the egg itself, but it's the choline within the eggs, which is in the yolk, which is in the yellow part. I just started buying egg whites, and it just comes in a container, like a milk container, milk carton container. It's like $5 or $6. and I make my egg sandwiches out of that, and eggs, they taste exactly like eggs because it is eggs. It just doesn't have the yolk in it. So I got my egg fix by doing that. And I cut out all bread unless it's whole grain bread. And I'm talking about the real whole grain stuff that's thicker and got a lot of grainy stuff in it. So you might want to look at those. More expensive. All of this is more expensive, but like you said, there's no price you can put on your health. So I eliminated bread, most white foods. And here's a real big thing that I did. I hate vegetables, but when you go and you watch all these videos and read all these articles on prostate health, they tell you you're going to have to flood your system with green products like green tea, and as many green leafy vegetables as possible, as many vegetables as possible, with the exception of things like corn and the starchy things like potatoes and so forth. Sweet potatoes, however, very good for the prostate. But because I hate vegetables, I've never been a vegetable guy. I started juicing my vegetables, and I just bought one of those juicers. I have one of those Jack LaLanne juicers, and it's a big mess. It makes a mess, but it takes 5 minutes to clean that mess up, so it doesn't really bother me that much. And so I started buying things like broccoli, spinach, baby spinach, zucchini, squash, other type like romaine, anything, carrots, celery, just about everything that you see in the produce section of your grocery store. And I would I'd make a big cup of it. I mean, I'd put a handful of broccoli in there, a big handful of the spinach. I'd take a half of a squash and put it in there, a half of a zucchini and put it in there, 2 or 3 stalks of celery. I mean, just everything, big handfuls of it. And I'd make a really big, like 16 to 20 ounce cup of juice. And because I hate vegetables so much, I had to do something to make it tolerable. So I found that if I cut a lemon in half and run it through there, the lemon juice really offsets that green vegetable flavor that I hate so much. And I put a whole apple in there and a handful of grapes. So all of those things in a juicer that I didn't do it every day. I did it 4 days out of 7. So basically every other day I would do juicing. And that, with the lemons in there and with the apples in there, it made it very tolerable. And I noticed an immediate increase in overall feeling of wellness. I just felt a lot better by doing that. So I was juicing. Then I found out also that you can take you can do your prostate a huge favor with a ingredient or a nutritional element, whatever the word is, called lycopene. And that's the redness part of watermelons and tomatoes. And I hate tomatoes, but I found that the lycopene is better and is more powerful. It becomes activated when you cook it. And so I found that tomato sauce is loaded with lycopene, and I love tomato sauce. And so I found out by reading and watching YouTube videos that if you drink like 8 ounces of tomato sauce 4 days out of 7, that will have a tremendous impact. And so I did that. I went to the store and bought bunches of cans of tomato sauce, and I just opened the can, poured it in a glass, and down it because it tastes great to me. I just drink it right out of the can, like that. And so I did that religiously for 3 months, and And then I was taking, the prostagenics later. About 2 months into the 3 months, I started using this. But before that, I was using something else that had uh, the same ingredients in it that the prostagenics does. And so, and that's just some of the things that I did. I exercised more. I tried to get better sleep. I don't drink a lot of alcohol, just very, very little every so often to help me get to sleep. But I wiped that out pretty much. Things like that. And so when I had done all of those things, taking that kind of proactive action, I was able to get that number down. Now, again, my urologist, the second urologist, younger one, said, well, you don't know that those things contributed to it. And I don't know that. But I believe it did for me. I believe that doing all of those things did indeed lower my PSA numbers. It made me feel better. I lost weight. I had more energy. All of the things that I did, a more wholesome nutritional approach, healthier approach, made me feel better. Now, I say all of this to say to you that when you start studying, how to get your PSA numbers down, what's going to happen is you're going to see ads. A lot of the videos will have people promoting a particular product. They'll give you this long 30-minute video like I'm doing, and then they'll say, oh, by the way, and you need this product. And that's fine. That's that's okay. They may have a good product. I'm not going to slam it. But here's what I want to stress to you, especially if you're an older guy like me in your 60s or 70s. This is a Saturday morning that I'm making this. I haven't shaved. I'm just a regular guy at home getting ready to go out and do some yard work. So I didn't dress up for you. But what you're going to find in all of these videos is at the end, they're going to promote a product. And I'm going to do something similar, but not a product per se, but an overall lifestyle change that I believe is the better approach. Instead of focusing only on the prostate, focus on your overall health. Because as I was taking all these, juicing and taking out the dairy products and eliminating sugar and all of those things, when I went and got my numbers, my lab work for my blood, so many other numbers were in the normal range where they're supposed to be, because I had, it had high cholesterol and some hemoglobin numbers weren't where they needed to be. All of those things started to come down because of an overall approach. And I think rather than just spending our time focusing just on our prostate, we should spend time focusing on our overall health, especially the older that we get. So I have put together a little ebook free for you. The link is in the description below. You can just click on that and get access to the ebook. And then after you've read through that, you'll get some other information on an overall wellness program that I'm doing and a few of my other friends are doing that's making a dramatic difference in our overall health. So let me just wrap this up by saying to you, it is frightening when you get a PSA number that's higher than what you expect. You get alarmed. And I strongly recommend, and I think you are already doing it by sitting here for 30 minutes listening to this video. You're proactive and you want as much information you can get. And I do encourage you to watch all the videos, learn as much as you can, read more articles, watch more videos, get as much information as you can, because you've got to make some decisions. So do that. But also, as you're getting all this information, get this little ebook that I put together for you, and then just read up on the things that me and some friends of mine are doing that are making dramatic difference. in our lives, especially in the area of just overall wellness and weight loss and energy and sleeping better, all of those things. I think if we take care of the whole person, the whole body, then the prostate will benefit as well. So thanks for watching. And again, just download the ebook, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for listening, and have a great one.